Climate conversations on the agenda.
With Dubai Holding, together for the good of tomorrow.
For his part, the COP president, Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, speaking yesterday, urged countries to make more progress towards that deal. He called on all parties to show much more flexibility.
We have made progress, but we still have a lot to do. You know what remains to be agreed, and you know that I want you to deliver the highest ambition on all items, including on fossil fuel language. If I can help, my door remains wide open to all of you.
Now, some have pointed out that there are some positives in the text, and analysts have reminded onlookers here that there is still time for more progress as negotiations are set to continue for the rest of the day here at Expo City. But there is a lot of detail in that 21-page document, but a lot of people are focusing on the phrase phase out. And that sentence that phrase with regards to fossil fuels will not appear in the final text, at the moment at least. Instead, the agreement calls for reducing their use. As you can tell, there's a lot going on down here. There's a lot to talk about. And I'm delighted to say I am joined in the studio by two people who know an awful lot more about it than I do. I have Amos Wemanya, who leads on just energy transition at the climate activism group Power Shift Africa in Kenya. And I also have Ruth Townend, who's a research fellow in the Environment and Society Centre at the think tank Chatham House in the United Kingdom. Thank you both for joining me in the studio. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Pleased to be here.
It's lovely to have you both here. Really, really fantastic. And Ruth as well. I mean, you guys have both done COPs before. I say done in the most casual sense. Is this business as usual? Amos, first of all, your reaction to this draft text. How did you feel when it emerged last night?
Yeah, the feeling is that, you see, the COPs have perfected one thing, kicking the can down the road. And I hope this COP is not going to do that. I hope this COP is going to choose life. And the text that came out last evening, I think it's great that for the first time we have a word around fossil fuels. That forms the foundation for this COP to establish something that is historical, something that's new. And we are hoping that at least if they cannot agree on phase out, phase down, they can agree on the transition. We need to transition away from fossil fuels because we know they're the cause of the crisis. But first, what we are saying, historical emitters need to do that first. You cannot expect countries like Congo or Mozambique to phase out before Canada and Norway. So we need historical polluters who have got us in this mess, in this crisis, to be able to phase out fast and help developing countries to transition. So at least if they cannot agree on the language on phase out, phase down, reduction, they can agree on the transition.
Ruth, was your reading similar to that?
Well, we came into this COP off the back of the global stocktake, which is the Paris Agreement's mechanism for checking that the agreement is working and progressing at a sufficient pace. And this report card, essentially, that we got from the global stocktake was a really, really bad one. Was supposed to be a moment of transformation, a moment of reckoning for the international community at which we come together and face up to the fact that we're simply not moving fast enough to avert the crisis that we face with climate change. The first draft of the text, we're now on draft 2, was stronger than this draft was. So it did have that language around phase down as an option. And since that draft came out, there was an intervention by OPEC, which is the oil producing countries' oil cartel, essentially asking their members not to back this language. And we've now seen, because we're in a process where we need to reach a compromise that all countries are happy with, we've come to a place where the text is watered down quite substantially. It's weaker than it needs to be, it's not as transformational as it should be, and it's not going to deliver the change that we need at the pace that we need it to happen.
It's really interesting, as you say there, that you kind of you're able to glimpse behind the negotiating doors, so to speak, to see who is altering this text, who is putting pressure on this text. Do you think that it is just the OPEC countries, or do you think we are seeing pressure from other developed countries as well? For example, the United States?
Certainly, I think that there is pressure from the United States around the language. So the United States is one of the world's biggest producers of oil, and they are continuing to invest in oil production. So when we talk about no more fossil fuels, no more drilling for oil, which is what the International Energy Agency, which is a big body that looks at the world's energy mix and how we produce our energy, has said that there needs to be no new oil and gas, essentially, if we're going to meet the 1.5 degree target. Now, countries are not acting in accordance with the language of phase out at this moment, and that's why COP needs to send a really clear signal to countries by having super strong language in the text.
Amos, we still haven't heard about China or India, their stance either, have we? And of course, they are huge emitters, partly due to the size of their country, partly due to the size of their industry.
Yeah, the thing is, actually, we need to all of us collectively take action and stand in solidarity with communities that are already facing the crisis. Of course, there are new emerging high emitters that also need to take action to be able to stop the emissions. We're actually running out of window of opportunity to be able to act. We are seeing historical levels of extreme weather events. We are seeing one of the highest, hottest years. We are seeing extreme floods. And I think we need to take action and a bold, urgent action to be able to limit or reach our 1.5 degree goal. But another thing that needs to happen is, I think within the text that we have right now, we are banking too much on technology that is expensive, and also this technology around capture, carbon emissions capture and storage is banking on land, because some of these emissions are to be injected underground. And what we have seen previously is community rights being trampled on by corporations that want to inject their emissions in their land. So I think banking on expensive technology that has the potential of abusing communities and leading to land grabs and land rights being abused, I think is dangerous, especially when we are living in an emergency.
Do you know, it does seem odd that every single solution that anyone comes up with always seems to trample the global south or poorer communities. Everything that right from, so if we continue using fossil fuels, it's bad for the global south. If we try and use carbon capture technology, it's bad for the communities. If we have problems with food security, you get large countries buying up land in the global south as well. There doesn't seem to be a just transition any way you look. That must be how it feels for you as a campaigner, I suppose.
Yeah, the thing is, we need a system change. The system that we exist in right now is a system that is designed to extract and exploit the poor. We need a system that is supportive, not a system that is extractive. And that's why we are against continued use of fossil fuels. But it's not just about moving from fossil fuels to renewables. It's about transitioning the system. And yeah, if it's about transitioning the system, and if it's about transitioning the system, we need to do it in a just manner. We need to protect and safeguard social and ecological interests of communities.